Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about something powerful, something that might resonate deeply with many of you. That is the transformative power of God to turn what seems like wasted years into a time of divine restoration. There are moments in life when we look back and all we see are the years lost, whether due to poor decisions, circumstances beyond our control, or simply the challenges of life. It can feel like the time we've lost is gone forever, and the opportunities we miss can never be reclaimed. But I am here to tell you today that there is a power that transcends time itself, and that power is the divine restoration that God offers to each of us. The first truth we must understand is that divine restoration is real. God is not a God of loss, He is a God of redemption and restoration. His word tells us that He can restore the years the locusts have eaten. Those years of disappointment, heartache, and setbacks are not beyond His reach. You see, when we truly understand the nature of God, we understand that He has the ability to restore everything that was taken or lost. It is not about how much time you think you've lost, it's about what God can do when He steps into the equation. God operates outside of time and space, so what seems wasted to you is simply preparation for what He has in store for you. However, in order to experience divine restoration, we must first recognize and face the seasons of loss and regret in our lives. We cannot move forward if we keep looking backward in shame and regret. Yes, it's important to acknowledge the years that may have been spent poorly or the opportunities that seem to have slipped away. But we must not get stuck there. Regret can be a powerful emotion, but it is a tool that Satan often uses to keep us immobilized. I encourage you to face your past, not to be bound by it, but to allow God to use it for His glory. When we accept that our past does not define us, we can begin to see how God will use even our mistakes as part of the story of our restoration. The key to unlocking divine restoration is surrendering our past to God. This is where many of us struggle. We want to be restored, but we often try to hold on to our failures, our mistakes, our hurts. We hold on to them as though they are trophies of our suffering, when in reality they are chains that keep us from moving forward. But restoration begins when we give it all to God, every disappointment, every hurt, every wasted year. We lay it at His feet, and we trust that He is able to take it and make something beautiful out of it. When you fully surrender, you free yourself from the weight of regret, and you give God the space to do what only He can do, redeem your story. Now, let me tell you, divine restoration is not just about going back to where you once were. It's about embracing God's plan for redemption, which is far greater than what you could have imagined for yourself. You may have had a dream that was derailed, a vision that faded, or a calling that seemed lost. But God's redemption doesn't just bring you back to the starting point, it propels you forward to greater heights. Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison. Yet God took what seemed like a string of wasted years and turned them into a position of leadership and influence. And the same God who did it for Joseph can do it for you. He can take your setbacks and turn them into stepping stones for something greater. Finally, I want to encourage you to live in expectation. Divine restoration requires faith. You must believe that God is working behind the scenes, even when you can't see the full picture. He has a plan to restore all that was lost, and His timing is always perfect. Trust that He is orchestrating everything in your life, even the setbacks and the delays, to position you for what's next. When you live with the expectation of restoration, you will see opportunities arise in ways you didn't anticipate. Your life will be filled with a fresh sense of purpose, and you will find that God has already been aligning the pieces of your restoration plan. So I urge you today, don't focus on the years that seem wasted. Don't get trapped in the past. Embrace the fact that God has the power to redeem and restore, and that your best days are still ahead. Trust in His process, surrender your past, and live in expectation. Watch as God transforms your wasted years into divine restoration. The years the enemy tried to steal, the years you thought were lost forever, God is going to restore them. He is going to make you whole again, and He will elevate you to a place where His glory can be seen in every area of your life. Your story is not over. The best is yet to come. There comes a moment in every person's life when they look back and feel as though something is missing, when it seems like time has been wasted, opportunities have slipped away, and dreams have been deferred. It's easy to feel as though the years behind us are irretrievably lost, like they're gone and cannot be regained. But let me tell you something that can transform your mindset completely. God has the power to restore what has been lost, and He can turn those seemingly wasted years into something beautiful. This is the incredible gift of divine restoration, and once you understand its power, it will change how you view your past, your present, and your future. The power of divine restoration is not just about making up for lost time, it's about redeeming time. The Bible tells us that God is able to restore the years that the locusts have eaten. This isn't just a nice saying, it's a promise from God Himself. Restoration means that what seems lost or wasted will be returned to you, and often it comes back even greater than what you originally had. What you thought was a setback is, in God's hands, a setup for something greater. When you understand the power of restoration, you begin to realize that nothing in your life is beyond God's ability to redeem and transform. Think about it for a moment. Look at your own life. How many of us have experienced seasons of failure, regret, or heartache? Heartache. How many of us have walked through times when we felt as though we missed the boat? That the opportunities passed us by, or that we could never get back the time we lost. The world often tells us that time lost is time gone forever, but in God's economy, nothing is ever truly lost. The years you may have spent in hardship or even in complacency are not beyond His ability to restore. God can take what seems broken and make it whole again. He can take your past failures and turn them into a testimony of His faithfulness. He can take your disappointments and transform them into appointments of divine purpose. Understanding the power of divine restoration also means recognizing that God's restoration is not merely a return to where you were, but a lifting up to where you need to be. You may have thought that your dream was over because it was delayed or destroyed by circumstances out of your control. But God doesn't just bring things back to where they were, He elevates them to new heights. If you've experienced loss, betrayal, or devastation, understand that when God restores, He does not just return what you had, He makes it better than before. Your future, your purpose, your destiny, everything you thought was lost will be returned to you in ways that will astound you. But this is not a passive process. Understanding the power of divine restoration requires that we actively participate in the process. You see, restoration is not just about waiting for things to return to you. It's about trusting that God has a plan, even in the most difficult times, and knowing that He is working behind the scenes to bring everything together for your good. It means trusting that His timing is perfect, even when you don't understand the delay. It means surrendering your fears, doubts, and regrets to Him and trusting that He will make all things new in His perfect way and in His perfect timing. In the waiting, we may feel frustrated or disillusioned, but that's where God works His greatest miracles. It is in the waiting that He refines us, strengthens us, and prepares us for the blessings ahead. It is in those painful moments, those times when we feel like we are at a standstill, that God is working on us from the inside out, making us ready to handle the blessings and restoration He is about to pour out. The power of divine restoration is also deeply personal. God sees each one of us not as a collective, but as individuals with unique journeys, unique struggles, and unique purposes. He knows every lost dream, every moment of disappointment, and every opportunity you thought was gone forever. And He is more than capable of turning it all around. He doesn't just restore us for the sake of restoration. He restores us to fulfill His purpose for our lives. The blessings that are coming are not just for you. They are for the people you are called to touch, the work you are called to do, and the impact you are called to make. Restoration isn't just about making you whole. It's about making you whole so that you can step into the destiny that God has prepared for you. Understanding this power changes everything. It means you can look back at your past without regret, knowing that God has the ability to redeem it all. It means you can look ahead to your future with hope and excitement, knowing that your best days are not behind you, they are ahead of you. When you understand the power of divine restoration, you stop living in the shadow of your past and you start walking in the fullness of your future. You begin to see that nothing in your life is wasted when it's in God's hands. You begin to understand that the setbacks are simply setups for something greater. And when you truly understand that God's restoration is real, you begin to live with the expectation that He will restore what has been lost. You begin to live with the assurance that the God who brought you through the hard times will never leave you nor forsake you. You begin to live in the confidence that God is working all things together for your good. Your past will no longer define you, and your future will no longer be uncertain. Instead, you will live in the freedom and power of knowing that God is in control and He is always working to restore what has been lost. In understanding this divine power, we become transformed. Our lives shift from one of despair to one of expectation, from one of limitation to one of boundless possibilities. We no longer see ourselves as victims of our past, but as victors in the hands of a loving, powerful God who is constantly at work in us and through us. And when you truly understand the power of divine restoration, you walk differently, you speak differently, and you live differently, because you know that nothing in your life is ever truly wasted. Everything is being redeemed. Everything is being restored. And God is making all things new. There comes a point in every person's life when they look back and recognize seasons of loss and regret. It's an inevitable part of our human experience. Maybe it's the loss of a relationship, the missed opportunities, or the dreams that didn't come to fruition. Perhaps it's the time wasted on decisions we regret, or the moments lost to mistakes that could have been avoided. The weight of these experiences can often feel unbearable. The sting of regret can hold us hostage, trapping us in a cycle of what if and if only. But let me tell you today, the first step toward healing and restoration is not to ignore these seasons, but to recognize them for what they are. Recognizing the seasons of loss and regret doesn't mean allowing yourself to wallow in self-pity or to become bitter over the past. It means confronting those painful memories with honesty and acknowledging that they are a part of your journey. You cannot heal from what you refuse to face. The power of recognition comes when you stop running from your past and begin to understand how it fits into the larger picture that God is creating for you. God never wastes anything. He doesn't waste the pain, He doesn't waste the tears, and He certainly doesn't waste the lessons learned in the seasons of difficulty. So when we recognize the loss, we are not only acknowledging the hurt, but also creating an opportunity for God's redemptive work to begin. It's easy to get stuck in the past, and it's even easier to allow regret to define who we are. Regret has a way of whispering lies to us, convincing us that we are defined by our mistakes or by the opportunities we didn't take. It convinces us that we are somehow less than because of the seasons we feel we've squandered. But here's the truth: you are not your mistakes. The loss you feel, the regret that has followed you for so long does not define your worth or your future. It's a feeling, a moment in time, not the totality of who you are. The power of recognition is in understanding that you have been shaped by these experiences, but you are not trapped by them. You are not the sum of your regrets. When you recognize the seasons of loss and regret, you also open yourself to the possibility of healing. You no longer have to carry the burden of unresolved grief. Instead, you hand it over to God and trust that He can take that pain and turn it into something beautiful. The Bible tells us that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him. That includes the loss, the missed opportunities, the dreams that didn't materialize. What you may have thought was a detour is really just part of God's preparation for the greater things He has ahead for you. Acknowledging the pain and the loss is not about staying in that place forever, but about recognizing that this season too will pass and something better is on the horizon. In recognizing the seasons of loss, we also must learn to forgive ourselves. There is power in forgiving ourselves for the things we wish we'd done differently. We often extend grace to others, but we struggle to give it to ourselves. Self-forgiveness is crucial in moving forward. You cannot step into the fullness of God's plan for your life if you are constantly burdened by the weight of your own regret. When you let go of guilt and forgive yourself, you open the door for God's grace to flood your heart. You allow yourself the freedom to move forward, to try again, to believe that the best is yet to come. And while the past cannot be changed, your future can be transformed by the power of God's grace. Recognizing the seasons of loss and regret also teaches us the value of resilience. Loss, as painful as it is, can bring with it a strength that we didn't know we had. Resilience is forged in the fire of adversity. It is through these seasons of difficulty that we learn how to bounce back, how to rise again after we fall. The seasons of loss don't break us, they make us. They shape us into the people we were always meant to be. So while it's okay to grieve, it's also important to understand that you have within you the ability to rise, to rebuild, and to move forward stronger than ever before. Recognizing your loss is a necessary step, but embracing the strength that comes from it is where your power lies. Surrendering your past to God is one of the most powerful and transformative acts of faith you can make. It is not an easy step, for it requires you to release the very things that have shaped you, the things that have hurt you, and even the things you've held on to in an attempt to protect yourself. But when you fully surrender your past to God, you open the door to healing, freedom, and a future that is not bound by the mistakes, regrets, or the pains of yesterday. Too many of us live our lives weighed down by the past. We carry around the scars of failures, the weight of missed opportunities, and the burden of wounds that have been inflicted on us, some intentionally and others unintentionally. These experiences, while they may have shaped who we are, do not have to define who we become. The past is a chapter in the book of your life, but it is not the final page. When you surrender your past, you acknowledge that while you may not be able to change what has happened, you trust God to use all of it for His glory and your good. The first thing to understand is that God is not intimidated by your past. He is not shocked by the things you've done or the things that have been done to you. He is fully aware of your history, and yet He still loves you deeply. When we refuse to surrender our past, it's often because we feel unworthy of God's forgiveness or grace. We think that somehow our past is too much for God to handle. But the truth is, God's love is greater than anything we've ever experienced, and His grace is more powerful than any mistake or hurt you have ever known. When we surrender our past, we are acknowledging that we trust God's ability to heal and redeem every part of our lives. Surrendering your past also means letting go of the power that it holds over you. Many of us live in constant regret replaying past failures and missed opportunities over and over in our minds. This negative cycle keeps us stuck, unable to move forward because we are too focused on what has already happened. When you give your past to God, you allow Him to take away the emotional and mental hold it has over you. You release yourself from the constant barrage of guilt, shame, and what ifs that keep you from stepping into the life God has for you. But it's not just about letting go of the past, it's about allowing God to take what was broken, what was lost, and what was painful and turn it into something beautiful. When we surrender our past to God, we give Him permission to redeem and restore the things we thought were irreparable. God doesn't just want to forgive you for your mistakes, He wants to transform your past into a testimony of His faithfulness, power, and love. Your scars become the very places where His grace shines brightest. The things you thought were weaknesses can be used as strengths in His kingdom. When we truly surrender, we allow God to lead us into a future that is not shaped by the limitations of our past. Imagine living a life free from the constraints of past mistakes, guilt, and pain. This is the life God desires for you, a life of freedom, hope, and restoration. It's a life where you can walk forward knowing that the past is behind you, covered by the blood of Jesus, and that your future is filled with endless possibilities. You don't have to let your past define you any longer. In God's hands, your past becomes a platform for His glory. Surrendering your past also means trusting God's timing. It means acknowledging that God is in control, even when we don't understand why things happen the way they did. When we hold on to the past, we often try to manipulate situations, fix things on our own, or make sense of things that are beyond our comprehension. But when we surrender, we place our trust in God's perfect timing and His ability to bring about good in every circumstance. We let go of the need to control the narrative of our lives, and we embrace the fact that God's plan is greater than anything we could have imagined. In the process of surrendering your past, you will also find healing. God's healing power is activated when we allow Him to enter the places in our hearts and minds that have been wounded by the past. These wounds don't heal overnight, but when we trust God with them, His healing presence begins to work in us. He comforts us, restores us, and gradually transforms our brokenness into wholeness. You may not see the full picture immediately, but you can rest assured that God is working in the deepest parts of you, healing your wounds and renewing your spirit. Surrendering your past to God is an act of faith, an act of trust, and an act of surrendering control. It is saying, God, I don't understand why this happened, but I trust you. I trust that you are bigger than my past. And I trust that you can take everything that has hurt me and use it for your purpose. I believe that my future is brighter because of your grace. And as you do that, you will begin to see that the weight of your past will lose its grip on you. And the future that God has for you will unfold in ways you never imagined. When you come to the realization that God has a plan for your life, it is like stepping into a world of infinite possibilities. You see, God's plan for redemption is not just about restoring what has been lost, but about taking you to heights you never imagined. It's about taking the broken pieces of your past, the setbacks, the disappointments, and weaving them together in such a way that you become a living testimony of His grace, power, and love. We often think that redemption means simply getting back to where we started, but God's redemption is so much greater than that. It is about transformation, elevation, and purpose. God's plan for your life is never about mere recovery, it's about divine acceleration. The world may see you as someone who has experienced failure, loss, or missed opportunities, but when God steps in, He sees your potential. He sees who He created you to be, and He is not limited by the mistakes you have made or the years you think you've wasted. His plan for redemption is to restore not just your circumstances, but your identity, your purpose, and your future. It's about aligning your life with His will, trusting His perfect timing, and allowing His power to manifest in ways you could never have planned on your own. When you embrace God's plan for redemption, you also have to understand that His plan is often beyond what you can see. We are often short-sighted, focused on the here and now, and we forget that God operates in a dimension that transcends time. While you may be focused on the moment, God is looking at the grand picture. He is arranging events, shaping circumstances, and positioning people in your life for the greater purpose He has for you. This is where faith comes in. Embracing God's plan for redemption means trusting that He knows what He's doing, even when things don't make sense. When you step into His plan, you step into a future that is infinitely greater than anything you could have imagined for yourself. So today, I challenge you to embrace God's plan for redemption fully. Let go of your own plans, surrender your past, and trust that He is working in ways that will bring about something beautiful. No matter where you've been or what you've been through, God has a plan to redeem every part of your life. Your story is not over, and the best is yet to come. Trust in His plan, for in that plan He will restore, redeem, and elevate you beyond what you could have imagined. I want to remind you that embracing God's plan for redemption is not just about a momentary fix or a temporary solution. It is about stepping into a life that is whole, restored, and aligned with God's divine purpose for you. Even when the journey seems long, the road is uncertain, or the struggle feels overwhelming, know that God's redemption is at work. He is making all things new. Trust that every part of your story, no matter how painful or lost it seems, is being woven into a masterpiece by the Master Himself. So hold on to this truth: you are never too far gone. It is never too late for God to transform your life. With every step, He is restoring what was lost, healing what was broken, and setting you up for a future that is more magnificent than anything you could have imagined. Step into His redemptive plan today and watch how He makes all things work together for your good.